Imagine you are standing on a deserted road in the dead of night. The air is heavy, and there isn't a soul in sight for miles. Suddenly, the dim glow of headlights pierces the darkness. It's the last bus heading toward your home. You'd get on, wouldn't you? Anyone would. But sometimes, the decision to step onto a vehicle is a decision to embrace something far more sinister than a long walk home. This story isn't just a campfire tale. It's a mystery from China that remains unsolved to this day. It serves as a haunting reminder that a single split-second decision can be the difference between life and a terrifying end. On November 14th, 1995, a cold winter night, Bus 375 began its final route from the Yuan-ming-yuan bus terminal toward its destination at Fragrant Hills. On board were the driver and a female conductor. At one of the stops, a young man boarded and sat near the front. The bus was quiet. The engines hummed the only sound in the midnight air. Suddenly, the driver slammed on the brakes. Two men were waving the bus down from the side of the road. This wasn't a designated stop, but since it was the last bus and the night was freezing, the driver decided to be kind.
3 people stepped into the bus. 2 men were supporting a third man in the middle. The atmosphere changed instantly. The temperature seemed to drop, and a heavy, suffocating silence filled the cabin. The newcomers were dressed in traditional Qing Dynasty robes, the clothing of ancient royalty. The fabric was tattered, caked in mud, and looked as though it had been pulled from the earth after 100 years. The man in the middle was slumped over, his long hair completely obscuring his face. The other 2 held him up by his arms, their own faces pale and expressionless. As the bus continued, the other passengers felt a growing sense of dread. An old woman, who had boarded at a previous stop, couldn't take her eyes off the trio. She sat frozen, watching them with a sharp, sidelong glance. The conductor tried to calm everyone down. "Don't worry," she whispered. "There's a theater nearby. They're probably just actors who didn't have time to change out of their costumes." But the old woman wasn't buying it. She noticed that the actors weren't talking. They weren't breathing. And why was the man in the middle so limp? For a split second, a gust of wind caught the robes of the 3 men. She leaned over, looking at the floor, and her heart nearly stopped. Underneath those long, ancient robes, there were no feet. They were hovering just inches above the floor. In a moment of brilliant desperation, the old woman stood up and began screaming. She turned to the young man sitting in front of her and slapped him across the face. "You thief!" she yelled. "I saw you! You just stole my purse!" The young man was stunned. He tried to defend himself, but the woman wouldn't stop. She created such a chaotic scene that the bus driver was forced to pull over. The old woman demanded they get off right then and there to go to the police station. To settle the chaos, the driver kicked them both off the bus. As the bus pulled away, disappearing into the darkness, the young man turned to the woman, furious. "Are you crazy? I didn't steal anything!" The woman's aggressive demeanor vanished instantly. She looked at the boy with tears in her eyes and said, "Listen to me. I just saved your life. Those 3 men, they didn't have feet. They weren't human." The young man and the woman went to the nearest police station to report what they had seen, but the officers laughed them off. They thought it was the ramblings of an old lady and a confused kid. However, the next day the laughter stopped. Bus 375 never arrived at Fragrant Hills. It had vanished. The authorities checked every CCTV camera along the route. They saw the bus pass the point where the old woman and the boy got off, but after that, it simply disappeared. It was as if the bus had driven off the face of the earth. On November 16th, 2 days later, the bus was finally located. It was found submerged in a reservoir nearly 100 kilometers away from its destination. When the police pulled the bus from the water, the scene inside was nightmarish. They found 3 bodies: the driver, the conductor, and an unidentified man in ancient clothing. But the findings made no sense. Impossible decay. Despite being missing for only 2 days, the bodies were in an advanced state of decomposition. They looked as if they had been dead for weeks, even though they were in cold water, which usually slows decay.
The fuel tank. When the police checked the fuel tank, it was empty of petrol. Instead, it was filled with fresh blood and urine. The distance. The bus was found 100 kilometers away from its route. It didn't have enough fuel to get that far, and no gas stations along that path reported seeing the bus. To this day, the Beijing government officially attributes the incident to a tragic accident, but the details, the faceless men, the lack of feet, and the blood in the gas tank have never been explained. Some say that if you stand on that same road at midnight, you can still see the dim headlights of bus 375 approaching. The lesson remains: be careful which bus you board. Sometimes a shortcut home is actually a one-way trip to the other side. Always trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, if the vibe shifts, or if you see something that defies logic, don't wait. Get off the bus. Your life might just depend on it.